In the quaint town of Western Illinois, Laura Cowell, a widowed healthcare executive, met a tragic end that stemmed from the depths of the online world. Laura's story is a heartbreaking one. Her life was filled with success and joy, but there was one piece of the puzzle that was missing: companionship. This longing led her to the popular dating website Match.com, where she connected with a man who called himself Frank Borg. Little did she know, this would set her on a path that would ultimately lead to her demise. Over the course of several months, Laura was drawn into a whirlwind romance with Frank. Their relationship was fueled by giddy phone calls and hundreds of eloquent emails. Frank skillfully manipulated Laura, using publicly available details of her life to create a bond of trust, and then persuaded her to invest in his online trading firm. As time wore on, Laura's skepticism began to grow. The love she once felt for Frank started to wane, replaced by a growing unease. But Frank was relentless. He coerced Laura into helping him infiltrate the accounts of other victims, exploiting her trust and her loneliness to his advantage. Laura's daughter, Kelly Gow, poignantly noted, "She had all these buckets full in her life, my mum did, but there was this one bucket that was missing, and that was companionship, and that's ultimately where we're at now, is because of that." Laura's story is not unique. It's a modern tale of a catfishing scheme that combines emotional exploitation with fast-paced investment scams. This method is becoming increasingly common and serves as the leading edge of an epidemic of scams targeting users of dating apps and websites. Laura's tragic end is a stark reminder of the dangers that lurk in the virtual world of online dating. It's a tale of caution, a tale of love exploited, and a tale of a woman who just wanted companionship. It's a tale we should all remember as we navigate the world of online connections. Laura's story is not an isolated incident. It represents a rising epidemic of online scams that have swept across the nation. This modern-day menace takes the form of emotionally manipulative catfishing schemes, coupled with fast-paced investment and cryptocurrency scams. These scams are not just about the money, they're about exploiting the human desire for affection and connection. In 2023 alone, the US Justice Department and FBI reported over 64,000 American victims. But this figure is likely the tip of the iceberg. Many victims, ashamed and embarrassed, keep their experiences under wraps. They may fear judgment, or they may not even realize they've been scammed until it's too late. The truth is, these scams are often executed with such sophistication that even the savviest of internet users can be duped. These fraudsters prey on vulnerabilities, using publicly available information to craft convincing narratives and win their victims' trust. This epidemic of online scams is not just about the financial losses, which in themselves are staggering. The human cost is even more severe. There's the emotional trauma, the broken trust, and in some tragic cases, victims have been driven to suicide. These scams are a national crisis, unfolding largely in secret. As we embrace the convenience of online platforms, from dating apps to investment websites, we also expose ourselves to new forms of manipulation and deceit. The digital world, with all its benefits, also brings new dangers. And as our lives become increasingly intertwined with the internet, the risk of falling prey to these scams only grows. So the question we must ask ourselves is, how can we navigate this digital landscape safely? How can we protect ourselves and our loved ones from becoming the next Laura Cowell? In the shadows of our digital society, a national crisis is quietly unfolding. The numbers barely scratch the surface of the real human cost of these scams. In the wake of these digital deceptions, we're not only dealing with financial losses, but also emotional traumas, shattered lives, and in some tragic cases, victims dying by suicide. The emotional toll of these scams is profound. Victims are left feeling violated, helpless, and in many cases, utterly alone. They've not only lost their hard-earned savings, but they've also been robbed of their trust, their peace of mind, and their sense of safety. Let's take a moment to underscore the fact that these victims are not to blame. They shouldn't feel embarrassed or ashamed. These scammers are sophisticated fraudsters who prey on very human desires, for affection, for companionship, for connection. They weaponize our own emotions against us, manipulating their victims with a potent mix of lies, deceit, and advanced technology. The tragic reality is that the human cost of these scams is likely far more severe than law enforcement can quantify. We're not just talking about numbers on a spreadsheet here, we're talking about real lives being irreparably damaged. The FBI has reported a striking number of cases ending with victims dying by suicide, a horrifying testament to the depth of despair these scams can induce. The devastation caused by these scams is not just financial, it's deeply personal. It reaches into the very heart of what it means to be human, our capacity for trust, our longing for connection, our need for love. And when these fundamental aspects of our humanity are exploited, the damage can be catastrophic. These fraudsters are not just stealing money, they are stealing lives. They're leaving in their wake a trail of broken hearts, shattered dreams, and lives irrevocably altered. And the human cost of these scams, the lives lost and the lives forever changed, is a price that's far too high to pay. Let's remember this. These victims are not statistics, they're people. People who loved, who trusted, who dared to hope for a connection, and who were cruelly betrayed. These fraudsters are not just stealing money, they are stealing lives. As the menace grows, our guardians of law and order are grappling to keep pace. The onslaught of online scams presents a unique challenge to law enforcement agencies at every level. From local police departments to federal agencies, the struggle to address this rising epidemic is palpable. Local police officials, often the first point of contact for victims and their families, are deeply frustrated. They face a steady flow of complaints, often from the adult children of divorced or widowed victims. These victims, unfamiliar with the world of dating apps, are easy prey for these scammers. But the police are finding their hands tied. The complexity of these cases, the international dimensions, and the sheer volume of incidents are overwhelming their resources. Federal agents, too, are struggling to keep pace. The scammers, often operating in plain sight in far-off regions like West Africa and South Asia, remain elusive. The international nature of these crimes adds layers of complexity to investigations as agents grapple with different jurisdictions, legal systems, and languages. Furthermore, these scammers have become increasingly cunning. They are leveraging the promise of love to strong-arm victims into becoming unwitting co-conspirators. This creates a legal quagmire for investigators who must decide how to treat victims who have openly committed fraud at the behest of the scammers, helping them launder funds swindled from others. The challenges are many, and the solutions few. Law enforcement and security experts from dating and social media sites have called these platforms a hunting ground for scammers. But how do you police an environment where anonymity is a feature, not a bug? How do you protect the vulnerable without infringing on the privacy of millions? In the battle against online scams, law enforcement finds itself in a race against time and technology. As the stakes get higher, the question remains, can our guardians of law and order adapt fast enough to stay one step ahead of these digital predators? The hunting ground of these scammers are often the platforms designed for love and connection. Dating sites and social media platforms, places where people seek companionship, have ironically become the playground for these predators. Imagine the irony, a place designed to foster human connection, being used as a tool to exploit people's vulnerabilities. These scammers are not just stealing money, they're stealing trust, hope, and in some tragic instances, lives. Security experts and law enforcement officers echo this sentiment. They've seen a disturbing trend where these platforms become a haven for scammers. A year-long investigation by CBS News has found that an increasing number of federal agents and local police believe the law enforcement response has not effectively addressed this problem. The financial losses are staggering, from $500 million in 2019 to over $1 billion last year. But more than the financial toll, it's the emotional devastation that leaves a lasting impact on the victims. Local police officials across the country express deep frustration at the lack of options to address the steady flow of complaints. Many of these are from adult children of divorced or widowed victims who have found themselves struggling to navigate the unfamiliar world of dating apps. Federal agents, on the other hand, are racing to keep up with scammers who are often operating in plain sight in regions like West Africa and South Asia. Scammers have become increasingly successful in using the promise of love to manipulate victims into committing fraud on their behalf, creating a legal quagmire for investigators. Law enforcement and security experts from dating and social media sites told CBS News that these apps have become a hunting ground for scammers. The very platforms designed to foster connections have become instruments of deceit. In this modern age of technology and connectivity, it's a bitter truth that our quest for companionship can lead us into a digital trap. In the quest for love, millions unknowingly step into a digital trap. In this digital age, safeguarding oneself from online scams is a necessary skill. As we navigate the labyrinth of the online world, it's crucial to equip ourselves with the right tools to fend off these digital predators. One of the most potent tools at your disposal is skepticism. It's important to remember that not everything that glitters is gold, particularly in the realm of online dating. If something seems too good to be true, it probably is. Always keep in mind that promises of fast money, high returns, or sweeping romantic gestures from a stranger can be red flags for a potential scam. Next is the power of verification. In this world of catfishing and false identities, verifying information is vital. If you're connecting with someone online, especially on dating sites, take the time to do a little detective work. Use search engines to check the information they've given you, look for their photos on other platforms, or use video calls to verify their identity. Another crucial strategy is to never share personal or financial information with someone you've only met online. Scammers are adept at creating emotional connections to manipulate you into revealing sensitive details. Remember, it's okay to say no, and it's okay to keep certain information private. In addition to this, ensure that you keep your online accounts secure. Use strong, unique passwords, enable two-factor authentication, and always update your devices to the latest security patches. Lastly, if you encounter any suspicious activities, report them. Reach out to the platform's customer support, your local law enforcement, or the appropriate cybercrime reporting agencies. Remember, there's no shame in falling victim to these sophisticated schemes. Reporting these incidents can help protect others and contribute to the fight against these online scourges. In the face of sophisticated scams, knowledge is your best defense. Equipping yourself with these strategies can go a long way in protecting you from becoming a victim. Stay safe, stay skeptical, and stay informed. Addressing this crisis requires a collective effort. We're not just talking about a handful of isolated incidents here. This is a far-reaching, insidious epidemic that's preying on the hearts and wallets of thousands. It's a modern-day menace that calls for modern-day solutions. Awareness is the first step. We need to pull this issue out from under the rug, shine a spotlight on it, and let everyone understand the gravity of the situation. Scammers are not just lurking in the dark corners of the internet. They're on our favorite dating sites, on our social media platforms, using sophisticated technology to manipulate their victims. So, let's talk about it. Share stories like Laura's. Let people know that they're not alone, that there's no need for shame or embarrassment. These are sophisticated fraudsters who are exploiting our basic human need for connection and companionship. And if you or someone you know has been a victim, speak up, report it. The statistics are already staggering, and they only represent a fraction of the true number of victims. Every report helps to paint a clearer picture of the problem and aids law enforcement in their efforts to combat these scams. But we can't stop at awareness and reporting. We need to push for more. We need to urge dating sites and social media platforms to ramp up their security measures. These platforms have unwittingly become hunting grounds for scammers, and it's high time they took responsibility. Stronger security protocols, stricter verification processes, increased vigilance. These are all steps in the right direction. Victims need support too. Emotional, financial, legal. The aftermath of these scams can be devastating. We need to ensure that there are resources available to help victims recover and rebuild their lives. Together, we can turn the tide against this rising epidemic of online scams. It's a monumental task, but one that we can tackle head-on if we all do our part. So, let's get to work. because no one should have to pay the price for seeking companionship.